Welcome back, everyone. Guess what? It is that happy time here on Wastrel Wednesday when we are going to play some classic Traveler with our most awesome game master under his guiding and, dare I say, gentle hand, Kyle Schuant, who will be joining us from the green room here in just a moment. And if you're just stopping by for the first time and you're wondering what the hell is going on here, welcome to the show. Please click that subscribe button, click the bell icon for notifications. We would greatly appreciate that. We always appreciate your input. So we'll get going here in just a second when our players start to arrive. We got a couple folks waiting in the green room. But anyway, I hope you're going on about your life and your day and your business and everything is hunky-dory. Doomsword, greetings. I see you over there, my friend. I apologize for the little hiccup earlier today. I thought the show was starting at 7:55, but I fixed it. Everything is copacetic. Greetings, Damien247. Good to see you. Good to be seen by you. While we wait for our players, why don't I bring in our game master, the Viking Hat GM, Mr. Kyle Schuant himself, and he can catch us up on what has been going on in his world. Oh, Kyle, speak to us from the distant Antipodean lands, my friend.
G'day. Let's just adjust this. I need a proper studio. Once we get the budget for it.
Yes, I will talk to budgeting about that and see what we can do for the coming fiscal year. But anyway, Doomsword said,
all is good. The kids have finished their school holidays, so they're back at school and not bothering me anymore. And aside from that, things happening down under. Well, there's political things happening down under, and we don't talk that on this show. So
we do not. We do not. The closest
it's the usual back and forth and drama.
The closest we get to politics on the show is me reading about bad production decisions in fandoms and hobbies that I like. And I don't think the Australian government has yet started to crack down on what edition of D&D you guys get to play down there, have they?
No, they haven't. I'm sure they'll get around to it one day. But
that would be a hoot. The Australian Fantasy Role-Playing Games Act of 2023 was put in place.
Well, they do want to have a digital identity thing, because the previous government, it's a new party in government now, but the previous one, they were quite distressed that people were abusing each other online. So they had a digital identity idea that basically, you'd have to give your name and tax file number and so on to be able to have any kind of online accounts. And they'd all be connected. So if you're Kyle Schuant with your email, you have to be Kyle Schuant on your Facebook and your Twitter and all the rest. Digital identity. I think they thought this would eliminate Russian trolls, farms or something. I don't know. I'm not sure what their idea was. And the new government has taken up this idea. They quite like it, possibly because they're a bit disturbed. So a large telecommunications company here, Optus, they had a data hack of about 10 million customers, 9.5 million customers or something. And they got all the data. And this goes well with, so it was before all the counterterrorism stuff. The government was worried about crime, and they didn't like, in the US, you've got the classic drug dealers with the burner phones and all the rest. Makes it hard for the cops to track them. Yeah, they didn't like that. So you can't have burner phones in Australia. You can have prepaid and all the rest, but you have to present ID when getting them. So those of us who've had our phones or had our phone numbers for 20, 25 years, we're all right. But the ones who got them more recently, they've got the driver's license number or the passport number or the Medicare card number on the records. So when they hacked it, they actually had enough information that they can go and start accounts and get access to your bank accounts and all the rest. But we're not sure exactly who hacked it or what the result of it all will be, because somebody popped up asking for payment for it. And they asked for $1 million, which is very Dr. Evil. $1 million.
In dollars.
It's like, what? You've got the data of 9.5 million people. You could access $1 million in an afternoon if you make use of even 10% of that data. So why are you only asking for $1 million? So we suspect that the guy who asked for that isn't actually the guy who has all the data, or maybe he bought it or something like that. And, we imagine that it's just going to be sold off over time. Like if somebody comes across 100 kilograms of methamphetamine, they don't sell it all in one go. That's too obvious. They sell it out in bits and bobs to various dealers over time. So we imagine that's what's going to happen with the data. So the government solution to this is that they think the digital identity thing is a good idea too, because the answer to problems of people stealing people's personal data is to take all the data and put it in one place linked to all the other data, just to make a really big, juicy target.
Yes. Well, speaking of online identities, telephones, and gaming, to kind of bring it all together, because I think this is probably an international problem. My kids are big fans of Overwatch, and Origin Systems, EA, the owners, the makers of Overwatch, they have basically come out and said, if you want to play Overwatch 2, two things that you must agree to is you have to have a postpaid mobile phone. That is, you have to have, like, you can't have what they consider a disposable phone, where you pay at the beginning of every pay cycle and use your phone. They won't accept that, because they send data to your phone via SMS about stuff in the game. And the other thing is that they have a voice chat system, which my daughter will straight up tell you nobody uses. Everybody like logs into Discord or Skype or Zoom for voice and then starts the game.
I think that's pretty universal. Like Insurgency Sandstorm has a voice chat system that nobody uses. They just they talk to each other outside it.
Yeah, but they record all of it, all of the audio. So for the scrubs who actually use it, everything you say on voice is recorded, which I think is hilarious on so many fronts, because consider, like, just for example, the audio issues that you and I have had, the audio issues that I alone have had. Now, Yes, they're a multi-billion-dollar company, but there is a limit to hard drive space. There is a limit to the number of shelves in Iron Mountain data storage warehouses they'll give you. How much of that are you guys going to keep for how long? And what are you going to do with an 11 kilohertz, 16-bit audio recording when you've got Kyle and I trying to play, and Kyle tries to say, hey, that enemy tank is near. And I really got to be careful about what I say next, but
we were talking about this in the gym last night, that government's collecting data and stuff, because one of our members is, he was born in 1979 in Hungary. He's migrated here. So he grew up under communism. And we were talking about how East Germany was famed for the most efficient intelligence service. And yet they had things like, they were worried that some people might try to flee the country, and they were going to track them with dogs. So they had the thought that they snuck into their apartments and stole an item of clothing and then stored it in a jar in this big warehouse somewhere. And the idea was, if Hans Schmidt runs away, we'll go and find his file and we'll pull his fishing hat out of the jar, and then we'll show it to Fido and say, track him, Fido. It's like, by the time you've done all that, Schmidt's in Paris,
Yeah.
I think it's the same kind of thing here. Oh, but artificial intelligence? No, it's like you just obsessively collect all this data so that you can control people or protect them, or whatever your aim is, and it's just too much. You're the data equivalent of the hoarder that the fire department gets an order about, because it's actually a thing that the fire department can sometimes get a report about somebody hoarding so much stuff in their house that it's a fire hazard.
Jeez.
Piles of magazines and stuff, and they can get the local council to come in. The local council gives them an order that you've got 2 weeks or whatever to clear it out and make it satisfactory. And if you don't, we're going to.
I just, everybody, I think to a greater or lesser degree, everybody likes Urbex. Everybody likes the YouTube videos. And with drones now, it's even cooler than the GoPro on the hat, because you can get the free synth music and fly your drones slowly over abandoned warehouses and factories. And when the Soviet Union collapsed, they kind of became the masters of abandoned industrial buildings and government buildings and that sort of thing. There's whole cities between just the left edge of the middle of Germany and the Kamchatka Peninsula that are just sitting there, that just like, there is no more communism. I am moving to Canada, and that's it. So they just, fucked off, walked away, and left factory. Like I saw one a few years ago. There's like an armored personnel carrier production facility somewhere in central Siberia that literally they stopped the shift, left, and never came back. So there's these BMP-1s hanging on the racks, although I imagine by now the Russians have probably scraped those together and are trying to send them somewhere. But the point is, with all of this crap that the massive state apparatus of the Eastern Bloc, which, let's face it, was under the control of the USSR. If you were in East Germany, you answer to Moscow. If you were in Poland, you answer to Moscow. If you were in Romania, you answer to Moscow. I would love to see the look on the face of an Urbex walking into a warehouse and there's mason jar after mason jar with undershirts, bras, socks, trousers, just one pair of each, just stuffed in a sealed jar with some evil-looking Cyrillic stencil on it,
Yeah, they just had too much data, and it's funny. Like, just as we're discussing this, I get this email from my children's school. They have a whole system called Operoo. They can't just send you an email. They have to send a message to Operoo, and then Operoo sends you an email telling you that you need to log into Operoo to read the message. It's a great example of too much complexity. Anyway, cyber safety presentation. Dear families of 5-6 students, we have been fortunate enough to secure a visit from our police liaison officer to complete an education system with our year 5-6 students on cyber safety. The Think You Know, with a U being the letter U, Think You Know presentation will remind students about safety online and links to the Victorian curriculum. Sessions have been booked on Thursday, 20th of October with no cost for families. So the police are going to come in and tell our children not to look at ISIS beheading videos or something. I don't know. It's all part of it. Just in case the parents are talking too much about the Optus breach, they're going to make sure that the kids feel secure. Trust us, know what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're actually really competent and intelligent, and not just normal dumb humans like the rest of human history.
Yes. So we're just we're waiting on a few more folks to join on here, folks. We've got a couple of our friends are in the back room waiting, and hopefully they'll be jumping on with us here in a second.
Well, we need a third. We've got 2. If we get 3, we can go ahead.
Well, I mean, technically, I'm 3, right? I see Sapphire, I see Bubba, and there's myself.
Yeah, but I don't like to kill people's characters when the player's absent. That seems discourteous. Fair enough.
But I tell you what, we can do.
And that, of course, happens when the player is absent, that the other players say, so-and-so goes forward into the machine gun fire.
It's not this captain. The command structure has to be preserved. I can recruit new crewmen.
Might there be 10-foot pit? I don't know. Who's absent today? John, you go forward.
John finds out.
Well, bring them in so they can at least chat.
Yeah, exactly. If nothing else, we can have a round table. So let's say hello to Todd, aka Bubba, and Sapphire, aka Sissy. Good evening.
Good evening.
I briefly saw Sapphire. She was like peeking up, like, "Oh man," duck back down.
I like these glimpses she gives us of herself.
Yes.
Yeah, it was facing up. Sorry.
That's quite all right.
And Todd is much less shy. He just goes ahead and shows us his beautiful self.
Now, those of you who are not fans of either the YouTube comedy shorts, It's a Southern Thing, or of Matt Mitchell might not know this, but Bubba looks like he could pull off a pretty good Matt Mitchell impression. He is a funny guy. But
you're talking about Kyle, right?
I'm talking about Kyle. No, I'm talking about you. You've got that you got that Matt Mitchell look about yourself. But anyway, so what have you guys been? Now I know what Todd has been up to, because he never leaves me alone.
I told you I'm stalking that horse now.
You're stalking that's right. The horse. Yes, we see it too, Bubba. That's right.
Well, I had to kind of point out the parts of it so that the full picture would come through. So
they've got. You know this running joke, right, Kyle?
What's that?
They have this sort of mise in scene that they believe that something over here shaped like a horse.
Yeah,
it's the hat. And isn't there like a figurine or something?
There, I tore the horse's head off.
That's just wrong on so many levels.
That's what it wants you to think, Bill.
So, but all kidding aside,
it's the head of the horse, man.
Well, it's a month for it. And by the way, just for our audience members, to remind you and bring you up to speed, if you've been following along, if you don't know this, I've been talking about it for weeks now. But just in case you are aware, this coming Friday we will not be playing Classic Gamma World on Let's Play. No, this coming Friday we will be playing Classic Call of Cthulhu. We will be running a 4-week, 4-session horror game on Friday nights. It will be grim. There will be sanity loss. There may be characters who are spread out into a thin red paste, and the two might be associated. Or they could all survive, solve the mystery, and then go home and say, well, it's a good thing we did that.
That's awesome. That is just awesome.
We could always solve the mystery, jump in the mystery machine, and go to the next town.
There you go.
Yeah, that doesn't happen often in Cthulhu.
It does not. I do
wounded physically and psychologically to have another adventure.
So there is. Tis the season to talk spooky. So I am not a fan of the show, even though apparently it's been on television for 632 years or something. But Supernatural, my wife, my older daughter, were huge fans of Supernatural.
Great show.
But there is always one episode of a show that has the power to grab a hold of me and make me sit and watch it.
The Scooby-Doo episode, right?
The Scooby-Doo episode. And it's not like just they said, okay, we'll go to Hanna-Barbera, we'll have them animate us and do a new episode of Scooby-Doo. They ran a classic episode of Scooby-Doo and put the Winters, is that it? The Winters brothers?
It's always the Winters.
Okay. They had the Winters brothers in a classic episode of Scooby-Doo. Now, they had new voice actors and they did animate new sequences of them reacting to it, or else it would have been a little bit, it would have taken you out of the place. But it was hilarious. And I remember that, like, my wife got me watching the X-Files with her. Like, she would watch X-Files. We were not even officially girlfriend and boyfriend. I was just third roommate. I was like the Jack Tripper of the household. And she said, hey, you want to watch X-Files? And I was like, I don't really watch much TV unless it's Mystery Science Theater 3000 or cinema. Yeah, I was a snob when I was in my 20s. What can I say?
I watched everything.
You did work in a record store, didn't you?
I did work in a record store. This was at that time. So
surely you would have been one of the original. Well, actually, guys.
I tried not to be, but sometimes I would.
I with a vinyl in your hands. Well,
I was not as I was never as bad as John Cusack's employees in that movie where he owns a record store, and I've gone blank and I can't remember what it's called now. I was never that bad, but I did well actually sometimes. Usually the younger crowd, like if Grandma came in looking for a copy of I Just Called to Say I Love You, that's fine. I'll take you right to the Stevie Wonder and buy and sell you the CD. But
The name of that movie, Bill, is called High Fidelity. It's a great movie.
thank you, High Fidelity. Anyway, to get all the way back, so my wife's like, "You want to sit down and watch the X-Files?" And I was like, "Okay, I guess I will." Ooh, somebody sprang a leak. Anyway, so the episode.
My youngest was deciding that she was going to talk, and I didn't mute it, so I told her hush.
That's fine. Greetings, Unicycle Peon Mobius. Good to see you. So I sit down and I start watching this X-Files episode, and it's hilarious. It's got Alex Trebek, Jesse Ventura. It gave us that great, incredibly nerdy sci-fi fan who dropped that amazing quote that's still with us today. I haven't played Dungeons and Dragons for all these years to not learn a little bit of something about courage. The whole thing, like the glue that held the episode together was Charles Nelson Riley as this like science fiction conspiracy theorist author, and it was. And I told her I was rolling on the floor. I'm like, if every episode of this show is this funny, I'm in. And of course, every episode of the show is not funny. It wasn't a comedy. It was, it was a very dark drama. But I still, that's the episode that got me hooked in. I think every episode of a TV show has a bear trap in it for me. To where if I'm just like, I'm just going to, you know what? I ain't buying it. I'm not watching it. Well, sit down and watch this one. Okay, clamp. And then it's got me. So yeah, that particular episode of Supernatural where they go into the Scooby-Doo thing, it didn't get me watching the show, but I do have an appreciation for the show that they don't take themselves so seriously that they said, you know what, let's do an episode where the Winters brothers go into a classic episode of Scooby-Doo. I mean, if that idea got kicked around in the writer's room.
That was by far the best episode of the entire run of that show. That show belongs in the Smithsonian. It is brilliant.
Then I've seen the best they had to offer. What are some unexpected, and it could be any genre, Kyle, what are some unexpected shows that like you're just like, I'm not watching this crap. Oh my God, I'm completely invested. I've got the wiki up on my phone and I know everything about the actors now.
I don't really do that. I just start watching the show from the beginning, and then I give it a few episodes usually. The worst for me is when I'm not actually enjoying it, but I feel that I have to finish the season at least for the sense of completion. There's a few books like that. That's how I felt about the Thomas Covenant books decades ago. The Thomas Covenant Unbeliever ones, the Stephen Donaldson ones. I wasn't actually enjoying them, but I just felt I had to finish them out of completion. I thought, you bastards,
just hate reading.
I don't really get the random episode and then I get sucked in. I think it's a bit harder to do that nowadays because it's not all free to air TV. So, unless your spouse or roommate or something is watching something regularly, don't really get that. And my roommates are my kids who watch kids shows, which don't really interest me, and my spouse watches the home improvement and the matchmaking shows, travel shows and stuff, and I don't get sucked in by them.
There's actually
Indian matchmaking one, and then there's the queer guys who or queer and gay guys who jazz up somebody's life and make them dress better and that's all heartwarming and nice and that, but I'm not going to sit down for 45 minutes and watch them. I have them in the background while I'm cooking or something and glance over and go, oh yeah, but that's it.
Unicycle PR says he wonders if I had a B5 episode Bear Trap. Yes and no. So once upon a time, what computer somebody used, and this is how bad of a hipster I was, what computer somebody used was of utmost importance. And I was almost as bad as a Mac enthusiast, as an Apple enthusiast. I used the Commodore Amiga, which for everywhere else in the world, everybody, like the Amiga 500 with a 0.5 megabyte RAM expansion, was like the gaming machine. Like nobody did general computing tasks on it, but the Amiga 500 was a games console that had a keyboard attached to it. So
it was also really big for music files and any kind of audio type stuff, if I recall.
Video, more desktop video, because the guys who designed it wanted a computer that you didn't have to have a dedicated monitor for. They wanted it to plug into televisions, and televisions run at a very specific cycle of refresh rates. So they designed all the way down to the barest circuitry, all the chips to run at some easily divisible fraction of that.
Well, my Atari did the same thing, but that was prior to Amigas, so.
But it was the same design team.
Yeah.
It
was the 8-bit stuff, so yeah.
The Atari guys, a bunch of Atari engineers left and created the Amiga. So there the roots are there. But anyway, to get back to it, here in the United States, anybody who used an Amiga was doing desktop video. And Foundation Imaging got these high-end Amiga computers with this specialized dedicated video card in it called a video toaster. And it came with this, at the time, world-shaking, like industry-changing for the price piece of 3D software called Lightwave. And so I started hearing about this television show that was made, all of its effects and outer space effects and everything were made exclusive with the Amiga. Well, of course I have to watch it. I have to be brand loyal. So the first few episodes of the show were made with using Lightwave on Amiga computers, and then the software was so popular, the industry was literally pounding down the doors of this little company in California, New Tech, and said, you have to port this to industrial systems. You have to put this on the DEC Alpha. You have to put this on Silicon Graphics machines. And so eventually they did do that, and then later episodes were all produced on much more powerful computers than the little old Amiga. But the first episode, I sat down and I watched it and I geeked out because I'm like, I got a computer that can do that. So that's what got me.
It'll take you 3 days to render one frame, but you could.
Yeah, exactly. The Amigas they were using had the $2,000 video toaster and associated software, and then another $2,000 processor upgrade. My little Amiga, no, no. My little Amiga ran at a tiny little fraction of that. Yang Yen's asked, is that the company Will Wheaton worked for? Yes. He did some work with New Tech. And hopefully he didn't drip too much soy all over them. Oops, was that out loud? So okay. So it's your turn. It's your turn, Todd. What trapped you? What show trapped you? Todd?
He must be trapped by it still.
Crickets.
He's watching TV. He's watching Babylon 5 reruns. So okay, Safi, what got you? What thing pulled you in just when you thought you were out? It pulled you back in.
Well, from the start, I was basically back in the 70s when I was young. It was the original Battlestar Galactica and Buck Rogers in the 21st Century. Those were the first ones that just completely and totally pulled me in. And then it just kind of kept going. I mean, you have things like Firefly and Witchblade and Forever Night, which was a vampire detective show, so based out of Canada. So there's been different shows throughout the years in that have pulled me in and kept me going. So
right on.
some of them have become cult kind of things too. So I mean, there's a whole movement that people want Firefly back. So and it took me some time, but I was able to track down Witchblade, and you can actually now stream it on Amazon as well. So I'm not the only one that kind of misses that. So
there was what was it? The one with Sarah Michelle Gellar, Buffy the Vampire Slayer. They released that for streaming. And a lot of those shows they would shoot on open mats. See, even back in the early 2000s, TVs were 4x3. If something was letterboxed, they would just letterboxed in. And then when widescreens became acceptable, if you watched something like even relatively brand new shows, it was still a 4x3 box in the middle of your big expansive widescreen TV.
Yeah. I mean, Buffy was good to start, but it got kind of kooky towards the middle and end. It was like they were running out of ideas and plots. I mean, how much?
It's the old jumping the shark thing. I think this is something Bill and I have discussed many times over the years, and I'm a firm believer that if somebody is going to be given a TV show to make, it should be basically just, okay, you need to tell us how many seasons you want to do. And the right answer is 3 or 5. 1, 3, or 5. That's it. And if the first season is successful, we will then give you 3 or 5. We'll give you that 3 or 5 that you asked for. Otherwise, no. Because what sometimes happens is they go all out in their effort in the first season to try to get themselves a second season. So they use up a lot of their best ideas in their first season, and they kind of rush through the plot a bit when they could do this slow burn over a couple of seasons.
Well, I mean, you've got exceptions like Star Trek and such with all of their spin-offs.
Yeah, but I mean, they've got all their spin-offs, and I don't think it's necessarily as good overall as it would have been if they just planned it from the beginning, because you get all this contradictory stuff in the lore and stuff. I think one of the reasons Babylon 5 has persisted in people's memories is that he did at the start plan for it to be over 5 seasons. And where it falls down is when you get towards the end of the 3rd season, when they told him, no, actually, you're not going to get a 4th one. And so he tried to make it a complete story by the end of the 3rd one. And then they said, oh, no, actually, you are going to get a 4th one and a 5th one. And then he gets towards the end of the 4th one, and they say, oh, no, you're not going to get a 5th. And so that's why you get that. There's that moment in the 4th season where Sheridan and that are sitting around, and they're talking about what to do about Earth, blah, blah, blah. And someone walks in the room with a clipboard and says, oh, Earth just attacked this refugee ship. And he's like, that's it. We're going to war. And you're like, where the hell did that come from? Well, that's because there were 6 episodes that they had to condense into 1 sentence. So,
didn't kind of Stargate do similar to?
Yeah. So I think because there's too many series out there, whether they be a sci-fi series or a drama series, a comedy series, that just went on too long. There were some that were cut short, like Firefly, and some like Friends and that. And it's it would have been better just ended after 3 or 5. Plan for it to be, there's a story that we want to tell, and we're going to tell it over these 3 or 5 seasons. You can always have your spin-offs if you're really keen, but
I mean, Orville started out really kooky, but it really, after about the 3rd episode, really gelled and took some serious topics in that from current times and applied them. And so it's become, in my opinion, a really good show.
Yeah, but I mean, you said the 3rd episode. I'm talking about seasons rather than episodes.
Yeah, no, I know. But I wasn't sure that one. I was watching it and I'm like, I don't know if it's going to last or not. It's kind of goofy. But then they kind of gelled and change it up so it had substance and not just spoof.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's one of the reasons I feel compelled to watch at least one season of a show that I start, even if it's pissing me off. like I got sucked into Taken. It was an Amazon Prime series, Taken, and it's basically Liam Neeson's character.
I've seen the previews for it. My husband was watching it, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to go there. I've got too much.
It's got Rollo from Vikings. Rollo's playing him, and I'm like, couldn't they at least get a guy with an Irish accent? You know. I'm like, I've got Witcher going. I've got Game of Thrones going. I'm like, I don't need another series to get sucked into at the time that it came out. So I'm like, I'll just avoided that one. You didn't miss anything. It was just like, this was one that jumped the shark right from the beginning. It was because it had all the classic spy agency, tropes. It's the small black ops agency that the government denies the existence of, but somehow still pays and stuff. And if you're caught, we will deny that you had anything to do with us, and you're probably going to certain death, but be dedicated to us anyway. And of course, there's a traitor within the little sub agency, and there's this all powerful agency, but there's like 6 of them. It's like 6 people. They're running around doing everything. That's like, we could call on the FBI with like it's 35,000 people or whatever, but no, we've got these 6 guys to do it. So
it's not even the size of Nikita's agency, huh?
Yeah. It's I mean, it's so and it's also busy and hardcore that the guy's been shot in the ass and he has to come back to the work next day.
Hey, it's only the Maximus Gluteus. He's fine.
Just to let everybody know, we haven't been deliberately suppressing Todd. He is having technical problems. He just pinged me, so he's gonna come back in. I'm sure he poor guy, he's probably had a lot of input he's wanted to have on this. I'll tell you, one of the shows that I have seen that, and I want to say 2 things about it. First of all, anybody here who's a fan of Breaking Bad, which is a show that ended exactly perfectly. Hey, there he is. Can you give us a mic check?
Hello.
We hear ya.
So, the guy who played one of the meth slinging duo friends of Jesse's, Skinny Pete and Badger, the actor who played Skinny Pete, was in the first season of a once really awesome TV show called The Blacklist, which starred James Spader as the most wanted man in America because he was a naval intelligence officer who was basically being groomed to become an admiral. Like he was going to get the nod for an admiralty. And then from outward appearances, he went home, murdered his wife, burned the house down, and disappeared with his daughter. And of course, as the show goes on, we find out that that's not exactly what happened. But
kind of sounds like Firestarter.
It's a great series.
It is. We watched up to season 5, and it just kind of started veering off to the point where the show, like the X-Files, has Monster of the Week and meta plot or meta story episodes both, and sometimes they weave them together. And some of the Monster of the Week episodes where Raymond Reddington, James Spader's character, who stays at a prison by slowly trickling information out to the FBI about all of these very dangerous criminals and criminal organizations he's worked with over the years. The Blacklist. The criminals that they were going after just got so ridiculous, and I tuned out when the bad guy was played by the actor who played Commander Data on TNG.
Brent
Spiner, his gag, his hook was that he had a rail gun that could demolish buildings. And it was like the size of an M16. It wasn't like, well, we got to mount this in the back of a semi truck, and in another semi truck there's the battery bank, and we have to take minutes between shots. No, he just had this friggin' assault rifle sized railgun that could fire ultra hyper velocity shots and knock down like 4-story reinforced concrete buildings. And I was just
Batman like, villains, huh?
yeah, basically at that point I was like, yeah, I don't even think James Spader's character can save us anymore.
Well, see, the Blacklist for me, what got me really into that was the whole dynamic between Red and the girl that I can't remember her name, but the girl that she was the only one he would talk to.
I don't want to spoil it if anybody really wants to watch the show, but yes, one of his conditions for turning himself into the FBI was, my handler has to be this specific person, this specific woman, and I'm not going to tell you why, and I'm not going to tell her why. And so that's the premise of the show. And of course, they drip it out over multiple seasons why he only wants to deal with her. And
there are so many twists and turns as far as that dynamic of it went. The Monster of the Week stuff, I would just sit back and laugh because I was like, it's almost like a glorified Scooby-Doo, you know?
Yes. Hang on one second. Well, I mean, you guys go on about it. For our audience, if you would hang on for just a minute, I need to step away. I'll be right back. So I pass the talking stick to, let's roll a D6 here. Kyle.
Nice.
Well, what else have I been disappointed by lately?
Disappointed? Oh, we've gone from the positive to the negative.
Yeah, that's more amusing. I mean, just look at all the internet discussions out there. Let's talk about how awesome this thing is. It's a very short conversation. Let's talk about how much we hate it. It goes on for pages and pages.
I don't know.
I watched Lost in Space. I watched all the seasons, even though I was disappointed by almost every episode.
So what did you think of the second version of Lost in Space? It's like they can't come up with new things, so let's remake things.
Yeah, well, I mean, it started off sort of promising, but then it just kind of fizzled out. The whole I kind of like the idea that there's this fallen civilization and all that's left of them is their robots still following whatever orders were left behind. I kind of like that idea, but then they sort of didn't really know what they were doing with it.
See, I could not watch the new Lost in Space, and the reason why is the same reason why I quit watching The Walking Dead after Negan baseballed those guys. Spoiler alert. It was because of the doctor character. That actor was so good at playing a bad guy, and I hated that character so much, I could not watch the show.
Yeah, I wanted to see her spaced as well.
Man, I wanted her to get beat up so bad. So bad.
Yep, I can relate to you there.
Characters you love to hate.
I'll say this about the continuation of television shows. The British have it half right. They have it half right. They know that, no matter how delicious the buffet is, if it sits there under the heating lamps and in the chilling trays too long, it's going to be rancid. Doesn't matter how good it started off. There's a time when you have to open the bar, close the buffet, and throw that stuff out. And it's better to not give the latecomers food poisoning. Yeah. But at the same time, like, you get like season 1, 18 months later, season 2, 7.5 years later, season 3, a year later, season 4, 19 years later, season 5. And I'm like, and the seasons are like 10 episodes, 3 episodes, 12 episodes, 2 episodes, 5 episodes. Like, guys, come on.
Doctor Who, even though I'm a big Whovian, love me some Doctor Who. But yeah, I'm with you on that, because it's the British, for some reason, I don't know how they program their like watching hours, because you have maybe 8 to 10 episodes of Doctor Who, and then that's just it. You just have to deal with that.
Well, Doctor Who has been around for some time, so they have
60 years.
They have developed their own following, so they can kind of dictate at this point what they're going to do.
Yeah.
Well, and
They're
actually,
a cult following.
with Doctor Who, though, after Moffat, the guy that brought the series back and was like the lead writer for a large majority of it, when the BBC kind of booted him out for him to go, they assigned him basically to do something else. The show suffered big time. I mean, it got, the writing got real bad.
See, we started watching like the old episodes and that while COVID was going on, because we needed something to do. And it's like, we of course had our favorites, so we would sometimes skip through it, but
Tom Baker.
yeah,
Tom Baker is everyone's favorite, surely.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, Tom Baker. Doctor Who with the cool scarf. Yeah.
That's the problem that happened with the girl, because she tried to take pieces of the prior Doctors and make it work, and it just kind of turned me off. So it's like each Doctor should have and develop their own style.
Though perhaps I was a bit prejudiced about Tom Baker's Doctor Who, because the time I became aware of him, he also had Leela as his companion, the scantily clad savage woman.
There you go. I was not aware of the whole. Doctor Who is already 802 years old by the time I started watching it in the mid 1980s, and the Doctor changes every season or every 2 seasons or whatever. I didn't know about that, so I watched some Doctor Who over at my sister and her husband's house. And they were doing a marathon because PBS here in the United States, to make money in the 80s, would do Doctor Who and Monty Python's Flying Circus and upstairs, downstairs marathons. That's how they did that. But I would watch them, and I was like, oh, this Doctor. Okay, it's a little Christmas lights on cardboard, but it's not bad. This guy has some verve. And then the next time I come over, I'm like, what are you watching? I was like, oh, it's Doctor Who. And I was like, where's Doctor Who? Well, that's him. And we had an Abbott and Costello moment. I was like, who? Yeah, the Doctor. Who? Him. Who? Kind of moment. I didn't know they changed them to explain that, and I didn't like that. So I never went back to it. But there is an extremely fascinating piece of media history. The BBC didn't think anyone would care about Doctor Who as the years went on, that they would just watch it, consume it, stop watching it, and die off or whatever. But when videotapes started becoming a thing, somebody said, we should really go back and get all the recordings of the show and rerun them. And the BBC was like, about that. Yeah, back in the late 50s and early 60s, magnetic tape was kind of expensive for us, so we sort of wiped those tapes and didn't keep them. But in the early 2000s, there was a television station in Africa that called up the BBC and was like, yeah, we've been trying to get a hold of somebody for decades. We've been trying to figure out what to do because we have all these telecine scans of all of these episodes of Doctor Who from the 50s and 60s. If you're not going to take them, we're just going to throw them away. And of course, the BBC flipped out and said, no, we want those. So they didn't get all of the old Doctor Who's back, but apparently they got a good chunk of what they're missing. So yay for them, I guess. We have another player has arrived. It is Razor. Let us add Razor to the stream.
Razor.
Congratulations and welcome.
He stepped out as soon as we added him.
Exactly. Let's add him to. Oh well.
I've figured out now. It's probably the time change. I bet we'll see Ricky soon because we had daylight savings start in Australia last weekend.
I gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. So if anyone looked carefully at the when I sent them the link, if they looked carefully at the scheduled start time, they would have seen the time. But if they just went, in North America, if they just went, same time, unless you've had daylight savings end at the same weekend as we had at start, then.
And we have not. Yeah. That's
so
not
we got 1 hour less sleep on Sunday.
Yeah, we're about to fall back, but I scrambled because I went on social media, of course, and I posted everywhere like I do. I like to let our friends on Twitter and Facebook and everywhere else know what we're doing, what we're up to. So I went out and I just, I typed up a little blurb to add to what Kyle said. Greetings, Razor. And I posted it everywhere and said, we're starting at 7:55. And then I come back and look at Kyle's start time. It's 6:55. Well, dang it. So I went and I edited everything and I deleted my tweet and edited it and then put it back up. And well, here we are. These things can happen. That's the joys of live. Well, I hesitate to call it television, but I mean, what else is it? We are broadcasting to an audience.
I love Damien's comment. I hated Topher Grace's performance in Spider-Man 3 as Eddie Brock Venom to the extent that I went to watch Predators just to see how his character would meet his end. Hey, I actually liked Predators. I know a lot of people don't, but I actually liked it.
That was a great movie, actually. That was a good spin on the Predator franchise.
Lawrence Fishburne was a good insane guy in the wilderness.
Whenever my wife and I see somebody like put on a real furniture chewing performance, we always kind of have the same joke. We're like, we didn't even cast him. We didn't give him a script. He just showed up and started doing that. So we turned on a camera. Like Henry Rollins voicing the anarchist terrorist for a full season of Legends of Korra. It's just Henry Rollins ranting about bringing down society. No, Korra, you don't understand. The White Lotus has become an oppressor when it was supposed to liberate people. In my plan, the Red Lotus will end the terrorism of the Avatar. You will die, but people will be free. And I'm just like, I'm just picturing everybody sitting there going, what page of the script he's on? He's not. He's not. Just let him go. We'll cut it together. If he drops any foul language, we'll make it work.
Ad lib.
You know, The Legend of Korra was that is one cartoon I had a really hard. It's still hard for me to watch that.
The sum of Korra's parts is greater than the whole. All of the subplots involving different characters interacting with each other when Korra is not on screen is really good. When she's on screen, it's terrible.
So, Razor, we've been talking about sci-fi movies and TV series that we love and that we hate, and some that we love to hate. Like I was saying, how sometimes I start watching a series and I realize that I don't like it, but I still feel compelled to finish at least that season. And then having finished that season, I feel compelled to watch the next season. Maybe it gets better, I get sucked in. So you share with us your.
I'd have to say probably my favorite sci-fi series was the Stargate series. Started with the Stargate SG-1, and then I loved Atlantis, although I thought the race were kind of interesting. When they came out with Stargate Universe, I tried that initially, and I'm like, no, this has nowhere to go. So, but no, I really like Stargate. I've finally gotten back into some of the Star Treks they've come out with. The oh god, what's the Discovery? Yeah, I didn't watch it initially because I wasn't going to go for the pay channel, and then when they finally put Halo on, I said nope, I got to do it. So I pulled the trigger on Paramount. So now I'm watching all the Star Treks that have come out. And my daughter is really big on the Lower Decks cartoon version. So it's kind of interesting. But
all right, and ones that you disliked or perhaps felt compelled to watch, even though you're like, no.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I never really got into Doctor Who. I am familiar with Doctor Who, and I have quite a few friends that do it. And I heard you guys talking about that one. But I myself never got into it. Probably
not
some
just
of the
ones that you're like, no, this sucks. I hate it. Even if it's, I have to keep watching it. We're not interested in the things you're lukewarm about. There's an infinite number of things.
Actually, I think the one I found absolutely the worst, it was actually a movie. It was Star Crash. If anybody remembers that one.
Oh, yes. Turbo Kid is the absolute worst for me. So.
Yeah. Star Crash.
Was Star Crash the one where they crashed on the desert planet that had the weird monster things?
The biggest thing I remember about Star Crash is their version of the quote Death Star looked like a giant hand, and when it went to battle stations, the hand closed. Okay, and then when they were doing a boarding action, you had guys flying through open windows, and these torpedoes would fly through land, and two guys would jump out and start shooting. Their anti-ship weaponry was a guy standing at the window shooting his rifle out the window.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Let me tell you what, the 80s was some prime cheese for science fiction, but
oh yeah.
I am objectively correct in this opinion, by the way, and if anyone doesn't like it, you can just click the red X on your browser. And then Battle Beyond the Stars is a great movie, and I won't hear anything bad said about Battle Beyond the Stars.
I like John Boyan's face.
Yeah, yes.
But the ship, come on, the ship.
The ship was one of the best. Good. Nell, the starship. You gotta love Nell.
Well, I have to know, in Australia, how big was Farscape? Because that was actually a really cool series.
Oh, yes.
It was pretty good. As well, Australia has this kind of parochialism where if something was filmed in Australia, everyone feels obliged to watch it.
So Xena the Warrior Princess.
Yeah. Even if they think it's not very good, they're like, yeah, but it was filmed in Australia. Or if it's got Australian actors, even if it's got Australian actors who are putting on an American accent or something, they feel obliged to watch it. It's this strange thing. It's like, I'm sure it happens in the US. It's like,
national loyalty
in Alabama. We got to watch it, man.
Well, I gotta. One of the coolest things that I ever saw, I watched Farscape beginning to end. We loved Farscape. We're big Farscape fans around here. And one of the niftiest things that I ever saw, And I thought this was such a lovely touch by the producers of Farscape to do this. It is one of the myriad of episodes where John hallucinates that he's gone home or has gone home, but it's home made by aliens or something. Time and again, they did stuff to tighten up the budget. You could always tell those episodes because it's like, let's just go to downtown Melbourne and film an episode, and we'll say he's back on Earth this week. There was an episode where he came back, and so they had him go to Florida to NASA to explain himself. And he's reading a newspaper, and I could not stop smiling. It was such a cool geek out moment. They made a copy of the Orlando Sentinel, which is our paper of record here in Central Florida. At that time, newspapers hadn't completely collapsed now, but they made it locally. Obviously, in Australia, all the cars had Florida license plates, but they made the copy of the Orlando Sentinel. So it looked more like an Australian broadsheet style, but it still had the Orlando Sentinel masthead. And I thought that was really cool that they cared enough to find out what would be the big newspaper in Central Florida, even on the East Coast. Well, it's called the Orlando Sentinel. Awesome. Print us up a fake newspaper that says the Orlando Sentinel for John to be reading. Cool. This is what newspapers look like, right? Of course, that's what newspapers look like. So it was just such a sweet touch.
I think that's probably pretty universal. If you're a country that doesn't normally, like, probably if you're in California, you don't care too much, And if you're at Camp Pendleton and there's another military movie being filmed, you probably don't care much. But if you're in some place that doesn't normally have a lot of movies filmed in it, you get a bit excited that there's one filmed here, and you feel obliged to go and watch it.
Yeah.
And then and laugh at the little inconsistencies and oddnesses about this. Like, there was a Jackie Chan movie where he was in Melbourne, and he's on the phone, and he's at Melbourne Central, which is a big shopping centre, and it's also where there's a train station underground. And they say, "Oh, can you get to Chinatown?" And he goes, "Oh, yes, I'll get on the tram. It's 20 minutes away." And it's actually 2 blocks, because Chinatown is just one street in the middle of the city. Chinatown, it's not like this ghetto or something. It's one street.
Oh, that's San Francisco that has that.
Yeah. But, it's always amusing when they show them, like, they'll go down this escalator and then turn a corner, and they're actually 3 blocks away. It's just they put together all the little things that they think will look cool, rather than because goes down the escalator and then there's this McDonald's. It's not that exciting. Or there's the $2 shop.
It used to crack me up when detective shows, like the Donald P. Belsario Museum of Television back in the 1980s, when they would show stuff. Basically anything that wasn't Miami Vice, where they actually cared to come and film in Florida, but if they showed like XYZ happening in Florida and it's obvious they filmed it like outside Los Angeles, like, guys, we don't have canyons and mountains for cars to run off of here. We don't. The best you could do is to like drive off of a dune and your car would just go near. Like, the tallest point in Florida is 132 feet high, and it is a gentle slope. It is just a very gentle slope.
And it's probably man-made.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right. What was it? Oh, there was
literally rent a bulldozer for a couple of days and make a higher point.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an episode of one of the Star Trek shows. Look, folks, I know 3 things Star Trek: the original show, the animated series, which is just part of the original show but in animated form, and the movies with the original cast. Okay, so don't at me. Don't at me. But somebody is talking about they lived in Florida, and I was like, oh, that's an interesting thing. And he said, we used to go on the so-and-so and overlook the ocean and watch unless you were in a tower, you weren't overlooking the ocean at night, sitting there in Pensacola. You were sitting at the ocean. You were looking at the ocean. You weren't overlooking the ocean. But it's Star Trek Future. Maybe there's a mountain there now. I don't know.
Somebody built a scaffold they could climb.
Yeah.
Well, there was
they
one
replicated it. I don't know.
There was one episode of Firefly that I had to go back and rewatch the scene just to make sure I was seeing everything right. But it was filmed and they were dropping off some merchandise, and it was like a shady exchange, and they were trying to figure out where the snipers would be and stuff like that. And I got to looking at the background, and it was the exact same background from the opening shots of MASH, where the helicopters dun 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 dun.
Yeah, the Paramount Rock, where Kirk tries to squash the Gorn, that shows up in a couple of episodes of Firefly as desert terrain. And I mean, how many of us has watched westerns from the 40s, 50s, and 60s where they shot near Monument Park in Utah?
Oh, absolutely.
Nothing wrong with reusing real estate.
No, indeed. Probably one of the most egregious, like you guys weren't even trying. You realize you could have driven 2 hours into Florida and gotten actual swamp. Was in the Green Berets, starring John Wayne. Came out in the early 1960s. I think probably the second movie about the war in Vietnam. Go Tell the Spartans was the first, and Go Tell the Spartans was kind of shocking for the time, because Go Tell the Spartans was really on the same level as Platoon, Full Metal Jacket, Hamburger Hill, is showing that this is a brutal and futile conflict. But this, John Wayne, the Green Berets, was not. It was just like, hey, it's another war. We're going to, and now John Wayne is a special forces guy. They filmed it in Georgia, like in central Georgia. Verdant pine trees does not describe the highlands of Vietnam, and it was so bad to the point that at the end of the film, when all the Hueys are coming in and they're landing, and John Wayne gets out and says,
"They're watching the sunset."
They're watching the sunset on their left. There is no sunset. It just keeps going to India. If you go left, it's straight to India. There is no sunset on the shore on the left. It doesn't work like that. It just, even my dad, who loved John Wayne and thought, well, there's nothing wrong with this movie, was like, yeah, that's kind of cringe. Like, you guys could literally not have put, just for one shot, backwards stickers and labels on everything, and then flip the film to make it not look completely like ass.
Make it a sunrise instead of a sunset.
Or make it exactly. It's a sunrise on the beach at South Vietnam, but no, it's a sunset. It's dramatic. You're in Savannah, Georgia, John. It's not. It's dumb.
Well, do y'all know where the movie Bridge Over River Quarry was filmed?
I know it was about the railway in Burma, but I'm not sure the filming location. Anyone want to take it before anyone at all? Anyone? Nope. Go ahead.
Not I.
It was actually filmed in Sri Lanka.
Oh. At least it's the same kind of latitude and climate and stuff.
Yeah, same general foliage, yeah. So it kind of fit.
Yeah. It wasn't Ponderosa pines and oak trees, John.
Oddly enough, another movie filmed in Sri Lanka is Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
That's interesting. I thought they shot that one in Hawaii. Well, learn something new every day.
Yeah, when they jump out of the airplane in the inflatable raft, as any sane person would do.
Yeah, like you do.
And they wash up on the shore or whatever. They wanted to film in India, but there was something happening and they couldn't do it. and they found out that they could get better prices filming in Sri Lanka. So that opening scene, everybody there that's supposed to be Indian is actually very famous Sri Lankan actors.
Wow.
All right. So I have to tell a gaming related story to Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Back in the 80s, of course, no commonly accessible internet. Always like putting that caveat there. Not no internet, no commonly accessible. It was ARPANET back then, but it did exist. So if you wanted to find out about a movie, a genre picture, like a science fiction film, you bought a copy of Starlog, and then you waited. And it either got made or it didn't get made. The end. Maybe you might go to Worldcon and they'd show a clip of it or have the actors there. But I mean, nowadays, when a genre picture comes out, we know who's going to be in it. We know who's going to write it. We know who the catering is going to be. We know where they're going to film it. We know how much it's going to cost. And about a third of the movie-going people already know the plot anyway. Not that movies aren't completely predictable anyhow, but so back in the night, and the trailer gives away the plot now. But back in the 1980s, my buddy Jeff gets a call from a friend of his. They lived in California. And he says, "Hey, listen, you guys got to come over. We're going to have a pool party, crash, and I'm going to run a kick-ass Call of Cthulhu game." And they're like, "Sounds great." Everybody meets over there. They pull an all-nighter and run this Call of Cthulhu game about cultists in India and these magical stones and everything. Temple of Doom comes out. They're there on Friday night. They go see it. And Jeff said, 5 minutes in, I realized this son of a bitch had gone to a premiere. And ran. He remembered the plot perfectly and ran it right down to Mola Ram burning his hands on the last Sankara stone and waking up and realizing the black power of Kali had enchanted him, and then he falls to his death.
So he didn't even give them credit in some byline or something.
He didn't tell them. He didn't tell them that he was running the Indiana Jones, and they were so pissed because they realized that all of them, when they went to see the movie, realized that he had basically spoiled the entire film for them.
The question that I have is, when they realized it, did they start expecting deep ones to show up in the movie?
I don't know. I think he just ran it straight up as the Tuggy cult, Mola Ram, everything. And I mean, you got to admit, it does make for a good Call of Cthulhu scenario. Love the movie or hate it. I personally, in terms of liking Indiana Jones movie, it is Raiders, Last Crusade, and of course the third and final Indiana Jones movie, Temple of Doom. I've heard that there was some fan project that made a fourth one, but it was so bad no one would ever want to see it, so I don't really count that.
Oh, yeah, okay. It counts along with the fifth one that didn't get made.
Oh, yeah. It's a shame.
You know that they're making yet another Indiana Jones movie with Harrison Ford.
I'm sorry, you broke up, Todd. Could you repeat, please?
Yes, they are making another Indiana Jones movie with Harrison Ford.
God, there it goes again, just static and pops and clicks. Was that the same for everybody? Kathy, you didn't catch that, did you? Razor? That was
not at all. Not at all.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Todd. I'm sorry. We can come back to whatever you were saying later. Maybe you can type it in chat. No,
he's saying they made some prequels to the Star Wars movies.
Anyway, Young Indiana Jones was all right. I mean, for what it was, Young Indiana Jones was all right, and they didn't attempt to rewrite the character. So that's Yang over in chat there. One thing, all joking aside, I do think it's hilarious that the age difference between Sean Connery and Harrison Ford is 9 years. Sean Connery did such a good aged fellow, and Harrison Ford wasn't bouncing checks to someone back in 1989 that they looked like they could have been father and son. I guess technically they could have been father and son, but now we're dipping into really creepy territory that we'll get for discussing.
Well, that just proves that Sir Sean Connery was born a pimp. That's just what that tells me.
Oh,
you had to go there, didn't you?
Well,
showing your southern roots there.
Sean Connery is one of those actors who's looked about 50 for about 30 years.
Yes. Charisma is not a dumb stat, lad.
There's certain actors like that. There's certain actors like that. Like Lance Henriksen looked 50 for about 30 years.
Well, and don't a lot of the teen looking actors, they're actually in their 20s, but they're playing like high schoolers? Come on.
Yes. One of my friends, we were talking about Buffy earlier, one of my friends who at the time was a platinum blonde with shoulder length hair, so they stuffed all of her hair into a dark wig because reasons I will explain. She was in her late 20s, early 30s, and she was a walk past on an episode of Buffy when they're in high school. But they made her wear a dark wig because she was told, your hair is actually a little bit brighter than Sarah's, so you would distract. So do you mind wearing? And she's like, no, not at all. so she wore a dark wig and walked very close, but either in the foreground or in the background as they're walking down a.
Well, she would be perfect in the House of Dragons.
Yeah.
Well,
which going back to the Doctor Who, Matt Smith. So plug.
Can I share a very funny Pamela Anderson story of when I met Pamela Anderson?
Is it YouTube safe?
It is.
Okay. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I'm living in Las Vegas, and this was the first time I was living in Las Vegas, and I was doing some work for a.
I guess YouTube didn't think it was safe.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm just losing him.
Susan decided it wasn't safe. Todd, we've lost your audio. Step out and come back in and tell us your Pamela Anderson story. So, have you met anyone famous, Kyle? Paul Hogan, maybe? No, just kidding.
There's a political commentator here, Anthony Dillon, who said, I learned not to name drop. I learned that from when I met Bill Clinton.
Nice.
I remember the episode of King of the Hill.
I've only met people who are famous in Australia. So like Tina Arena went to the school that my mum taught at, and was a couple of years older than her and stuff. A couple of years older than me. Stephen Alessio is a footballer here that I went to school with, and he became an AFL footballer and stuff. And Scott.
For the American audience, that's a soccer player.
No, it was Australian rules football, in fact.
Rugby kind of thing.
I don't think anyone went on to become a soccer player. There were a couple of cricket players as well. There was a guy, Leo, that went on to become a
Bubba's back
cricket player and stuff. I was trainer for Scott Pape, Barefoot Investor fame. I don't know if you get his books over in the US, best-selling in Australia, but so I've known some Australia famous people, but not world famous people.
Well, that's cool. That's cool. So Bubba, tell us your Pam Anderson story, and hopefully Susan is not going to squelch your throughput.
Okay, so living in Las Vegas, doing consultant work for a company, a retail company, and the business next door, one of the stock guys came over and said, "Hey, Pamela Anderson is shooting a scene for her VIP, which was a TV show, out in the walkway, the mall. Do you want to go walk and be an extra?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, that sounds great," because I'd never, seen Pamela Anderson, and I had a bit of a crush on her, and so we're walking by, and I had never seen anyone so beautiful in my life, and I couldn't help but stare at her when I was walking by because she was so beautiful. And so we walked through, and the producers were telling me, using hand signs, stop staring at Pamela, stop staring at Pamela, because I'm pretty sure I gave off quite a creepy vibe. So we walked past once, and I grabbed my buddy John. I said, "No, we're walking back through." And so we're walking back through, and I can't help but stare at her. And even John's poking me in the ribs, and he's going, "Dude, will you stop?" And I was like, "I can't help it, man. She's hot." So I do this like 4 times, and each time I walk through and I'm just staring at her, they have to yell "cut," because I'm just giving off the super creepy vibe. So I thought the last time they said "cut," I thought, here's your chance to shoot your shot, Todd. So I went to walk up to her to introduce myself, maybe invite her out, for coffee or something. And these large shaved Sasquatch people grabbed me and would not let me go talk to Pamela Anderson. And I had to be physically carried away. So the only thing I could do was I was screaming out, "Pamela, my name's Todd. I just want to drink some coffee with you. This is my number." And
my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And can y'all believe she never called me? Can you believe that?
Why are you just snorting?
I mean,
well, I have nothing. Nothing to add to that.
It was probably because they're already with Tommy Lee Jones, and
well, my
True
brush
story.
with celebrity is not that bad. Oh my gosh. I was with a friend, and we were visiting grandparents in Pittsburgh, and we were getting ready to come back to our drive because we're in Wisconsin. So it's going to be like a, 12, 14-hour drive. And so we're getting snacks. So we're at the grocery store, and there's like a commotion, not a big commotion in that, but it's a mom with her daughter, and, it was kind of cute. And we look over, and there's Fred Rogers waiting to check out in line, just calmly eating a yogurt. And the next aisle over is a mom, and her little girl's like, "Oh my gosh, that's Mr. Rogers." And he noticed and looks over and says hi to her, and her mom's like, "Oh, go ahead and say hi." And I mean, it's just precious, the interaction in that. And she finally, clinging to her mom, says hi to him and that. But it's like, your childhood hero kind of thing, seeing him in person. And I mean, this is like 20 years later, so I'm like, oh my God, he's so old, but it's still Mr. Rogers. So, and he did have a sweater on.
Oh, of course.
So I mean, he was the real deal. So it was kind of cool.
That's wonderful. Razor, I know you've got to have one, Razor, right? Have you met Mr. Rogers?
Oh no. Well, let's see. I did meet. Well, I was at a location where Elvira showed up.
Never
Halloween store. No.
Peterson, lovely woman.
Oh, I believe it. Yes, I would love to meet her in real life, just casually. And I also remember one time at Comic-Con where I was going one way and she was being herded through the crowd in the other direction. You could see she was like, "Oh, help." It's like, I'm just kind of squeezed in here, and as these big burly guys are escorting her. of course, crowded at Comic-Con. She's a celebrity going to a panel or whatever. So they are making sure she gets there. And then I also remember one time I was working at a customer's home. I used to do telephone repair service for the local phone company. And it turns out that the customer I was working for was a football player. I'm talking professional. And this was, God, decades ago. So I don't remember. I think it was like for the Browns. But he wasn't the quarterback or anything, but this is somebody that, I would look up and just keep looking up and his shoulders are 6 feet wide type.
Clay Matthews.
But, I'm not a sports fan, so I really couldn't have placed him. But he was kind of nasty. It's like, you're going to do it the way I want it. Even though you can't be done. So, but.
Can I share one more funny? I have a bunch of funny things.
I have one more too after.
For this retail, but one of the things that I would do for this company is whenever a celebrity, because I'd met celebrities before I geeked out over Pamela, and one of the things that would happen is they would use me as the salesperson. And another salesperson would shadow me, and basically I was training them how to sell to celebrities, basically. And I was in the warehouse doing inventory, and call came in and said, "Hey, Sylvester Stallone's people are here to pick up the Ottoman. Can you have a stalker bring it up?" And I thought, yeah, well, I'm coming up to the store anyway. I'll just grab it and come on up. Well, I'm walking in the back of the store and I'm carrying this Ottoman, and it wasn't that it was heavy. It was just awkward and it was obstructing my vision. And a stalker was supposed to be walking in front of me to kind of clear the way and guide me. Well, he went quiet on me. So I just kept walking forward. And I leveled Sylvester Stallone with an Ottoman.
Ooh.
He's a really short guy, and I was very embarrassed, and I kept apologizing, and he was laughing about it, and I was helping him up, and I told him, I said, man, in the future, when you're in a furniture store, could you do me a favor and just wear platforms or maybe some lifts? Then I maybe could have seen you over the Ottoman. He thought it was funny. He's a really great guy. He's a class act. But yeah, I leveled him with an Ottoman.
Well,
so my story.
I have just a moment. I have a celebrity court case. Right, which it's an ordinary court case, but somebody's tried to get celebrities involved. Like Bill and I always like talking about the sovereign citizen types. But this is even crazier. So there's a guy who had a judgment go against him a few years back, and he's appealing that judgment and seeking discovery. The originating motion states that the following relief or remedy sought. Under section 32.07, discovery from non-party of Supreme Court, General Civil Procedure Rules 2015. I'm seeking to confirm the song I Feel Good by the artist Armando Christian Perez, stage name Pitbull, has reference to Ruby Rose impersonating a judge at Broadmeadows Magistrates Court in 2017. That court being based in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia. I asked to confirm that the lyrics from the song I Feel Good, lyrics state, put a jacket because these diamonds give you chills, refer to 1, diamonds in the song refer to Ruby Rose. 2, jacket in the song refers to Ruby Rose wearing a black robe / jacket / cloak, black covering of some sort to disguise her Hollywood distinguishable features, i.e. neck tattoos, personal appearance. 3, these references are in regard to Ruby Rose impersonating a judge in a real court case I was involved in 2017. I'm seeking Armando Christian Perez reveal his knowledge or documentation about Ruby Rose impersonating a judge or Broadmeadows Magistrates Court, and if if any documents are of existence that are or have been in his possession or may still be in his possession, if not his knowledge on any documentation that existed or might now be of non-existence relevant to this preliminary discovery, which allowed him to release the song I Feel Good, referencing Ruby Rose impersonating a judge. So he's trying to say that Ruby Rose impersonated a judge, and therefore the judgment is invalid because she's not in Australia. And he's trying to...
Well, thank God we've got the Australian legal system to sort that out for us. We have
the court said no, go away.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Good on
Go on, Sapphire. Your turn.
Okay, one quick one. I'm going to physical therapy, and I'm sitting there waiting for my appointment, and out walks an NFL player, Melvin Gordon. And I'm thinking to myself, if the NFL trusts my physical therapist, I am in a good place.
If you saw what happened to Tua Tagovailoa this past weekend, you might rethink that.
Well, it was Melvin Gordon, and he's with the Chargers, and he had suffered some hamstring injury in that, and he's still playing to this day. So they know their job.
Well, good for him.
Yep.
Good for him.
A friend of mine ironically was a surgery assistant. He did all the prep work and that kind of thing, and he played rugby professionally for many years. And so when his team were doing downtime, whether it was after the game or on break, he would give the entire team of players IVs, so that they could just sit, chat, and hydrate while also hydrating. So I don't know, worked great for them. I can't officially recommend it or endorse it, but
no, I can believe it. I had a buddy who did a hitch with the 101st in Iraq and again in Afghanistan. And when he was in Afghanistan, he ran a scam on the unit he was with that was perfect. Instead of carrying his full med kit, he divided it out into exact amounts and gave those to every other trooper when they would go out on patrol and say, you're going to carry some, you're going to carry some, you're going to carry some, you're going to carry some. And they were like, why are we carrying your kit, Doc? And he said, well, if you get hit and I have to get to you, do you want me to have to carry an extra 20 pounds of gear running across open ground to get to you to administer first aid? I might just be that much slower. And nobody else questioned that.
Or if something happens to the doctor, they've got something to help themselves.
Exactly. Yeah. But they would actually his unit, he would have them march with IVs to stay hydrated.
Oh yeah, a great idea.
Yeah, and just slap it in. I never got around to asking him that, but yeah, what one would think a Camelback would do just as well.
Water bottle.
Yeah. A canteen even.
I think we're all accounted for. Should we do some gaming?
We're missing Tammy, but she should come in at any point in time.
Okay. Yep.
Also, yeah.
Girl power.
Is anyone still watching after all this time?
When did we start? I just got off work.
Yeah, we started earlier, Ricky. I didn't think of
about an hour and a half.
I got the scheduled time. Yeah. So yeah, we started an hour and a half ago because daylight savings started in Australia.
Oh,
on Sunday,
okay.
And I didn't think of it. I sent out the thing, and I thought, I guess I just thought, oh, people will just look at the scheduled start time, and they'll appear for that.
Well,
Bubba reminded me, so.
Well, at least good news. My Wednesday client, which is who I had tonight, got moved to Monday. So that won't happen again. So I'm here.
And as far as viewers, we've had into the teens, so it's an ebb and flow kind of thing. We're just glad you guys are watching it. And
I've only got another half an hour, so we'll leave the actual session till next week, and we'll just continue our sci-fi and silly talk.
Okay, that's fine. You're getting all post show. It's a
yeah.
It's the after party show.
Sapphire said she wanted an official after party. and
this is
so
the
we have
thin
nothing but
crust,
pasta.
but with all the toppings.
Hey, I've got an idea for a prank.
It's frosting.
When the second part of the girl power shows up, we'll just act like we just wrapped up, and we'll just make up crazy things that happened.
Oh, God. I thought you were going to say them.
Oh, dang it! You just missed it.
Yeah.
I tell her that a character walks in and everyone else is just lying machine gun to death.
Yeah, right.
We're just laying there bleeding.
Yeah.
It's only a flesh wound.
We find out we're all replicants, you know. Yeah, everybody's a replicant. You should have been here. The reveal was awesome.
Speaking of replicants, though, what would really be fun would be to play some yeah, thank you, Brain. Where you're all a comedy RPG super
Paranoia.
Paranoia. Thank you. I would love,
Either that or fuzzies. That's where I was going.
I would
Furries.
love to play some Paranoia. The combat
Clones.
mechanic system is weird, but like, God, is it fun?
Jimmy asks, which one of you is the Jordani mole? Every Traveller game we ever played in was always one that wanted to play a Jordani agent.
Well, if we
yes,
told
Jimmy,
you,
Then we have to kill you.
that is why we don't have the Jordani and
No.
the Soleimani in this. It's
We'd have
just
to do
imagine
a
the
flash
Expanse. Imagine the Expanse universe, but like 200 years on, when they've already been traveling amongst the stars. All this, there's just humans. There's just regular humans, different groups of humans, and so on. There's none
You
of
know
that
what, Cal?
nonsense.
I'm gonna spoil it. Bubba is the Judani Mo.
they said Zodani mole, not opossum. Anyway,
Hey, that looks funny. It doesn't look like you have clawed hands.
here's Tammy, guys. Here's Tammy. So
Hey.
yeah, I was as shocked as the rest of you guys to find out we're all replicants.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
The reveal,
completely
Kyle.
and totally.
I am blown away. The philosophical implications of this and the wormhole.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter because you're all dead now anyway. So, you know.
Well, so I have
But
a
in
question.
this timeline, though, but the alternate one that you said when the wormhole opened was
Yes.
completely Tammy. You should have been there. It was really some of the best ever game mastering
But-
I've been party to. I'm sorry
I do have a question that wasn't covered at the end of the game. Was Bubba able to set off the tactical nuke?
But if we're,
I think I'm saving that for next week.
No, alas. But you do still have the City Buster, though. You've still got.
I completely missed the girl power, Tammy. Come on.
Oh, yes.
I had to cover for you.
so better question. If we're all replicants, where are our other bodies? Like, when are we going to wake up in test tubes?
That's cloning. That's a little different. That's a whole nother ball.
Tammy, they're yanking your chain.
As hard as we can. As hard as we can.
Daylight savings started on Sunday here in Australia, and I went ahead and set the time, and I didn't think to comment to anyone. So we started an hour earlier than anyone expected. So we've just been sitting here talking shit for the last hour and a half about sci-fi shows we like and celebrities that we've met and knocked down with Ottomans.
Did we panic you?
And so on.
Tammy frantically looking through game notes. Wormhole replicants.
California does our daylight savings in about a month.
Ooh, fun.
Right. So when I send the StreamYard link, just keep a good eye on the scheduled.
Yeah,
time.
it's actually going to be, well, I will actually get home like moments before needing to get online because I get home about 3:30.
I mean, like all game groups, we talk nonsense for the first short little while anyway. So
we just had our after party. We had our dessert for dinner tonight.
That's
Pretty
okay.
much, yeah.
That's okay. It's frosting. We can do sugar.
We
And
have
we'll a
plenty of
proper session
time.
next week.
We have plenty of time. Tammy, have you met anyone famous?
They're not famous anymore, but at the time, when I went to Disneyland, they were famous. They were
Hit us.
the
Hit us.
kid at One Day at a Time. I think One Day at a
Oh, crap! I've gone blank here. Somebody help me out. Mackenzie Phillips?
No, that young boy that was on. He went on there for only a few seasons.
Oh yeah, I think she stepped in when, or he stepped in when she left. But I don't. Now I got to look it up.
And he's never went around anywhere, but I did get an autograph from him, but I don't know where that Disneyland ticket is anymore.
Oh.
I had the fortunate opportunity to meet when I was studying abroad in Scotland, a couple who are actors for Disney. They do like Disney's themed parties and stuff. And they were awesome. They were fun. I went and had drinks for them. They actually bought me dinner. And we're both HEMA guys. Her husband and me. So I got him into the HEMA event, and they bought me dinner. And
Nice.
but apparently, like, there are professional actors at Disney parties. I never knew that. But like the people that like go around and like they do an active floor show kind of thing, like during the party.
Hey, I'm with you, Jimmy.
Yeah. There's guys that you can hire just to be at parties. I mean, just like now there's those shout out services where you can pay for Matt LeBlanc to, wish your friend a happy birthday or something like that.
That is just so cheesy. Come on.
Yes.
Let's pay some celebrity actor to make your day.
Well,
You can't do it on your own. You need to pay somebody.
Who would you want us to pay to wish you a happy birthday then?
See, I have no one. I don't want somebody paid to say happy birthday to me. I want them to say happy birthday because they know who I am and they like me.
Could you resurrect Theodore Roosevelt? I think that'd be fun.
He just leans forward out of his coffin.
See, the closest I would get was like my teen crushes. My OCD is coming out, but I had crushes on Rick's. So it was Ricky Schroeder, Rick Springfield, and Richard Hatch.
Oh, I met Richard Hatch. You just reminded me at Comic-Con. And paid to get a picture with them.
There you go. You met Richard Hatch. Wait, who'd we lose? Did
Bubba had to log back out and log in.
Okay, he'll be back.
he needs to get brought back in.
His audio seems to croak like every 17 minutes, like clockwork.
I think his internet is like a tin can on it.
See, it was meant to be. It's girl power.
Yeah.
He's not in
And
Florida,
it
is
was my
he?
very first Comic-Con ever going to. And I had certain coworkers that for a whole month wanted to kill me because I wouldn't shut up about it.
I have three met famous people. So when I worked in the record store, it was near the Orlando International Airport, and the mall it was in had a 5-star hotel, had a 5-star Sheraton hotel. So lots and lots of famous people stayed at that hotel. Like I was off work one day when apparently Rowan Atkinson went to the bar in the food court because he was doing voice lines for the Lion King at Disney. And he went to the bar off the mall food court and basically held court for like half the damn day, cracking people up. Good thing I missed that. But I met Charles Barkley, swell dude. And my funny Charles Barkley story is he was signing autographs for everybody. Like people, little kids were bringing up stuff for him to sign, and we were like handing out pieces of paper so they could get an autograph with Charles Barkley because the Phoenix Suns were in town playing the Orlando Magic, and Sir Charles was still an active player at the time. And he, the guy who owned the sports memorabilia kiosk in the middle of the mall, walks up and is standing there, and he is taking the bolts off of an acrylic sports card holder, and it's Sir Charles's rookie card, and he just glances over and just gives him this like just GTFO look and says, "I ain't signing that." And the guy just kind of shrugged and left. And it makes perfect sense because he signs it. That's basically like signing a check for $15,000 to the guy, right? But he was super nice to us. I somewhere around here on a cork board or something, I've got his autograph. I met Gary Gygax, of course. Gary was neat. It was a lot of fun hanging around with Gary. I miss him for many different reasons, not just, hey, I knew somebody famous. I mean, it was good for the hobby that Gary was with us.
See, I don't really consider that celebrities, though, because, I mean, I went to Gen Con and I met a lot of, like, the artists and the game stuff, game people and that, so
Gary didn't consider himself a celebrity in that regard, but not at the time that I knew him anyway. But still, he's famous.
Yeah.
It just makes me smile, and like my kids didn't believe me when they were old enough to watch Futurama, and the episode with Gary's, and I'm like, I know him. I do too. But the other was hilarious. They were filming Superboy in Orlando, and the guy who played Superboy was in our store, and he's there with, I don't know, with his chick or something, and he's going through like stuff. I never watched a single episode of Superboy. Somebody pointed out to him, like, hey, that's the guy that plays Superboy. And this dude's hair was dyed black. I mean, obviously dyed black. Like it looked like it was done with house paint. And so I'm like, oh, this is cool. Well, I wasn't gonna be, are you Superboy? You know, he's another customer. He's in the store. He's got shopping bags. He's looking for stuff in coincidentally enough, soundtracks department. I remember he's over by that browser. So I go over, and like I did with all customers, I start to say, are you looking for something in particular? And I say, are you? And he snaps back at me. Yeah, I played Superboy, or I play Superboy. Like I was about to ask him, are you Superboy? I mean, just like, you know, like just incredibly annoyed that I dared to approach him and speak to him. So I was like, I just kind of laughed and I said, I don't even
know how the guy is now. So that shows.
Yeah, he's doing like real estate infomercials now. I'm kidding. I caught like on cable broadcast TV one day, like on the History Channel in midday. I'm actor blah blah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I want to talk to you about a great opportunity when I accept roles which you haven't for a long time, according to IMDb. But literally, I said, I was just going to ask you, are you looking for anything in particular? And he's like, yeah, no, I am, you know, when he realized that he'd made an ass of himself. But as he's walking away, I just wanted to blurt out, what'd you get last week? A 1/6 share?
Are you talking about Dean Cain?
Dean Cain, yes.
Yeah, he's a jerk. And another person that's a jerk is the comedian that did Monday Night Football.
Oh, you're not talking about Dennis Miller. You're not talking about Dennis Miller. Yes.
The biggest jerk in the world.
Oh, see, I know people who've had interactions with Dennis Miller and had good interactions with him, but I'm not saying you did or you're wrong or anything, but it's a shame to hear. It's a shame to hear.
Yeah, I was. It was once again when I was in Las Vegas, and a very famous toy company that was used for the movie Big. Their Las Vegas store. The people there heard about my interactions with celebrities at the retail store I was consulting with, and they wanted me to be kind of do the same thing at their store and train a new crop of what they call secret shoppers, and that's salespeople that deal solely with celebrities, and you're on call, right? You don't have set hours; you're just on call.
Right.
So I said yes, and it was kind of the same setup, a salesperson with Shadow. And I was called in, and Dennis Miller was the person. He brought his kid, and so I'm upselling these toys to this kid, and Dennis Miller was just a jerk. He was like, "Excuse me, I'm the one with the money. I'm the one that's going to be paying for it. You should be selling me on this, not the kid." And I said, "Well, are you going to be playing with the toys too?" He didn't have much to say about that, but yeah, a complete jerk.
Mood.
Man.
Yeah, and he was really borderline abusive to the kid verbally. I mean, finally I turned around and I told him, I said, "Man, look, I know you're famous, but dude, that's no way to talk to your kid, man. Come on, you're better than this, surely. Come on." And I still sold him like $3,000 worth of toys, but when he left, the next day, the manager called me and he said, "I don't know what you said to Dennis Miller, but he requested that you no longer be his sales rep." And I said, "That's fine by me."
Damn, dude, that's harsh. That is harsh. I think one of the better stores on the flip side, and I think everybody's heard this. If anybody on the stream hasn't, I'll gladly repeat it. But Robin Williams was apparently, well, not apparently, we all know Robin Williams was a tabletop gamer. And his the story from the game store owner in San Fran is such a charming story, and it's so cool. It is so cool. But basically, guy's closing up shop. It's like 6:30, whatever. He's in the city center, and because it's a comic shop, you got crap all over the windows and door, Warhammer posters and D&D stuff and comic posters and that sort of thing. And somebody's banging on the door, and he's counting down the register, whatever. And he's got some employees hanging out, friends of the store, whatever. And he just yells, "We're closed." And he keeps doing it, bangs on the door again. And he walks around so he makes sure they can hear him, and yells, "We're closed." And somebody ducks under the poster that covers the top half of the door, and it's Billy Crystal. And he says, "We drove up from LA. We've been on the road for like 4 hours. Can we please come in? We got our kids here." And he's like, "Oh, Billy Crystal." Or somebody that looks like Billy Crystal. So he opens the door, and there's Robin Williams and Billy Crystal and their kids.
Nice.
And they had heard about this guy's gaming store. So they come in and are very apologetic, but they apparently blew mad stacks on RPG and gaming materials.
Nice.
Williams,
that is awesome.
Williams was an old school D&Der, but he didn't have the time to sit down and dedicate to a week-to-week game. So he just did pick up stuff like Warhammer. In fact, after he passed away, his daughter Zelda was doing like live stream videos, because even though she played with Dad, she didn't know about the particulars of all the stuff. She was more of a video gamer. And like she was holding up like miniatures that he'd painted, asking the audience on the stream, like, "Does anybody know what this is?" And
that was such a tragedy.
Yeah,
just a heartbreaker.
A lot of people talk bad about being professional DMs or charging to run games, but I've always thought about maybe doing something like that, but just
I think we lost you again. Less than 7 minutes.
Yeah. YouTube has demonetized this player.
selling my services to the
there he is.
Oh, we got him. Cool.
There he is. And now he's gone.
Well, one thing I can say, just for myself, I mean, I joke about, hey, super chat if you want to see something happen. Anybody can super chat at any time for whatever reason they want. I don't let it influence the dice. It was a running joke for a long time, and it's still popular.
It still is.
But
I'll let it influence the dice.
But I will I will say this. I do professionally DM. I have professionally DMs. If you go to guidekey.com, you will find my website. I've done it, and it is a thing. I have people come and they ask me, but I don't exclusively charge to DM. Like, I don't go to my FLGS and say, you want to play with Bill Silva, you're going to have to pony up some bucks, people. No, but there is a team building, problem solving, fun day aspect of DMing. And by God, to anyone out there, any of you guys on the panel, any of you guys in the audience, if you can make some scratch DMing, do it.
Oh yeah,
absolutely do it.
I would, but I'm not a good enough DM.
Your time is valuable. Your time is valuable, and you are worth something. Anyway, so there's Todd. So Todd, tell us about your DMing idea.
Oh, okay.
Are you back?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
we can hear you.
yes, we can.
Okay. Whew. Yes, I tell you, there.
Quickly get it out before we lose you again.
Oh no!
Before you lag out again. Oh God.
I think. Oh, we lost Todd.
Oh,
dang it!
I will say, when it comes to meeting famous people, I mean, the best I've got is, like, I have one of my best friends is an author, and, like, other than that, like, that's pretty much it. Other than, like, the occasional famous academic, and that's like famous academic, right? You know, they're big because 12 people know their name and they wrote a book. Woo, right? You know, and like that's it. So
I have met Anne McCaffrey.
That's
I talked to her in email.
Brin. Well, actually,
Nice.
she was personal friends with a friend of mine.
Cool.
That's very cool.
And met David Brin and another author, because when Comic-Con was in its early years, when you went to the ink pots, it was an actual dinner involved, and they would allow you to sit with authors and other, quote, celebrities that were present. And I sat down 2 years in a row with David Brin, and I can't even remember the other guy's name right now, but he's a pretty big author of fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
unfortunately, with the beard who never finishes his novels, and he's got that telly series. Probably that guy. You can forget.
See, I used to read a book every day. I'm down to like one every 2 or 3 days now. So I've slowed down.
I will do that when my master's.
How do you do that? Because
when my master's and PhD is done.
You mentioned in passing children. So how do you manage a book every 2 or 3 days?
Kindle Unlimited on my phone. So like at work, breaks, lunches, yeah. And then I only sleep like 2 to 4 hours a night. So I need something to do.
That is very bad. You probably have erased parts of your limbic system.
Well, as long as I get 4, I'm okay. I'm pretty convinced they've done scientific studies that I have the short sleep gene. So I can function on 4. If I get less than 4, I need a little bit more coffee, but I can work.
I do best on 4 to 5 hours of sleep. If I sleep more than that, it has to be like 12.
Well, show relevant. Let me ask you guys this. For the 3rd anniversary, this coming up March, do you guys want me to do a 24? I've done a 12.
No.
So that's a hard no from TK.
Love yourself, sir.
No.
I've done 24 hours before, but I was much younger.
If you don't have the short sleeve gene, you're gonna get pretty punchy at the end.
If I do that, TK, I'll have to move the show over to Pornhub.
No, don't do it.
You guys don't want a 24. Audience, what do you think? 24? There's only 7 people out there, so it's not like right now. We had like 12, 13 people on earlier, but it comes and goes. It's all good. By the way, I just want to take a hot minute and say, if you are stopping by, if you haven't subscribed, please click the subscribe button, click the bell icon. Who knows, in March, you might get to watch a 24-hour-long meltdown.
Likey subby dingy.
The Dungeon Dweller is saying that decapitating the horse is what's causing the internet interruptions.
Yes. I decapitated the horse, and now it's killing Tonkatod's internet interventions.
I told y'all that horse is mean. Now y'all gonna believe me now?
On the sci-fi topic, I've just seen a post. Somebody said Ellen and Grimes should start naming kids after noble gases. Neon Musk and Xenon Musk are absolutely the names of Martian warlords. To say nothing of Krypton Musk.
Hey. Before I forget, I saw recently on Discord somebody had shared, I guess, Michael Moorcock is coming out with a new book, and he's got an interview on some format. Wow. Yes, I know. So he's got some live interview and something or other on it. So I'm sure we could Google it and pull it up. But I was pleasantly surprised because I didn't realize he was still alive and kicking, and he's got a new book that's coming out on the Eldrick. So
awesome.
Well, earlier Kyle was talking about the quit naming kids after gases. In the early 80s, when my sisters were graduating high school, my 2 older sisters, there was a set of twins in the school that graduated with Rhonda, the second oldest. Anyway, their names were Orangelo and Lamangelo. Orange Jello, lemon Jello.
Oh God!
Orangelo and Lamangelo. That is hilarious. I was here to hear that.
Well, I just went to look up.
Why would you do that to your children? Why?
I mean,
that was her 2 favorite flavors of Jello.
I mean, like, why did Michael Jackson name his kid Blanket?
Yeah. And these are the people who are going to pick what home to put you in. Be nice to them.
Yes, my kids say I get a window, so I'm looking forward to it.
I have a quick game thing real quick.
Michael Moorcock apparently is 82. I just looked it up, and it took me to his Wikipedia page. I never knew. Moorcock has his own music project, which records under the name Michael Moorcock and the Deep Fix. The Deep Fix was the title story of an obscure collection of short stories by James Colvin, a pen name of Moorcock, and was the name of the Jerry Cornelius Band. Moorcock's story had dealt with releasing the unconscious. And although referencing William Burroughs had no specific illicit drug meaning, yeah, sure.
Of course it did.
This allegedly lost the band considerable airplay. What? That it had no illicit drug meaning, or that it did have illicit? And gave Moorcock what he called a great reputation in the drug community that made venues and stations wary of booking and playing them. So he released a Stoner album.
Nothing wrong with that.
And he's worked with Hawkwind, with Robert Calvert, with Blue Oyster Cult, with Spirits Burning. His last public appearance as a music performer was with Nick Turner and Flame Tree in Austin, Texas, March 2019. He's currently writing songs for Ellen Davey and other old-time collaborators.
So this 82-year-old dude is still rocking out. That's awesome.
There you go. What was your gaming-related comment, Razor?
Yeah, Razor.
We do actually do gaming content on the channel occasionally.
Do we? Oh my goodness!
I have an idea to send a letter to the commander of the base, and I wanted to posted in here for you folks to look at. It's going to take a couple of posts here. Let's see. It's going to go in the chat. There's the first part of it.
Is somebody outside trimming their hedges?
Yeah, this construction across the road that's been going on for 2 years. Oh, you won't be able to see it.
Oh God, you mean okay? You mean in game? Okay, word. Because my brain went to look. I do professional editing and shit like as a job. Please don't make me work. I just got off.
Oh no. This is as a crew.
Yeah.
We could send it to whoever's in charge and see what they think. This is an idea.
Do it. I like what I see so far.
And
do it.
Okay, and that's the last of it.
Oh God, now I have to read the last of it. Okay.
Oh.
All right.
Basically, what it says is this guy came on board, did not identify himself, damaged our vessel to the tune of 100,000 credits or whatever the actual number that it cost us to repair it is. And in addition to stealing our rifles, he took 100,000 credits worth of gold ore. That will do two things. One, it will explain why suddenly this gold shows up in the local markets. And two, obviously he didn't report it. So it'll bring the wrath of his superiors upon him.
Okay, read out the letter for the viewers. This is some actual Classic Traveler game-related content, guys.
All right, so I will start. To station commander or whoever we choose to send it to, we wish to report that one of your officers boarded our ship for inspection. This officer refused to identify himself other than his authority. See attached video, sending the video of who this guy was. His inspection crew then proceeded to, quote, search our vessel for contraband. They forced open panels that could easily have been opened without force and otherwise ransacked our ship, causing it to no longer be safe, to be in safe operating condition, requiring repairs. In addition to this, the official also stole several items to include 10 hunting rifles, I assume that was a number we had, that have no military utility, and almost 100,000 credits, 100,000 credits worth of gold ore. I assume we had ore as opposed to actual refined.
No, I thought they were bars.
Bars?
Yeah,
okay.
you had actual gold bars.
Okay, then that would be adjusted.
You gave one case of gold bars to the guys who were repairing your ship.
Okay.
Gold or what? Gold or what?
Well, I will change that to gold bars or just gold bullion. Okay. And then see attached inventory. So we can throw any other little odds and ends we want in there. Like he took my favorite coin collection. Okay. Your officer refused to provide any receipt for any of these stolen items. This is in direct violation of all interstellar laws. We are I assume it's Union registered vessel, and therefore subject to extraterritoriality aboard our vessel, as well as being prejudiced to lawful interstellar trade. The heavy-handedness of this officer would lead me to believe that he is in fact in league with the rebels on the planet who wish to paint your government in the worst possible light. We are requesting return of our stolen property or financial compensation for same, as well as financial compensation for the required repairs to our vessels for the damage caused by your officers' inspection.
So to save face, what I would do is I would change stolen to confiscated.
Okay. Other than
that way, it allows him to be able to save face and retrieve the items and return them, or at least, as his reporting goes, politically to do his part without accusing per se. It's a
well, he's already going to be hammered because obviously he didn't take any of our gold, but we're saying he did. So where did he didn't report it because he didn't take it. So his superiors are going to come down on him like a ton of bricks. Like, where is this? We want our share.
And I only have one tiny problem with any of the above.
Okay.
It's all a complete lie.
No, not so much that. Right now, we are essentially invisible.
Mm-hmm.
By submitting this letter, we are now inserting ourselves, making ourselves visible within the system. We can take the abuse and let it slide and remain invisible. Or, right, we speak up against the abuse, and now we are now visible within their polity. And I don't like that idea. If only because, like, I think it's a great plan. But let's be honest, if we're stuck inside a totalitarian dictatorship, they're not gonna care what we think.
No. If we were dealing with some shit kickers on a type C world or something like that we could throw this at and really put the fear of God into them, I would be much more inclined. But right now, the easiest way to deal with a problem is just to make it disappear, and I don't want to get disappeared.
Now, however, there is something I would love to see done here. Save this letter, and right before we leave the planet, turn it in, and then send a copy to the Space Council or whatever, right? The International District, blah blah blah, and then hopefully in 6 months to a year, something comes of this. And we will be off the planet and sufficiently far enough away and sufficiently, well, more difficult to murder. Yes, we could never probably come back here again in the same ship or wearing the same skin, but I'm cool with that. How does that sound?
Well,
that works
I
for me.
I kind of like the idea of because the whole point of this is so that we can turn these gold bars in for some credit, and questions won't be raised about it being us. Fingers are pointed to old boy that took it.
Correct. And that's why I say, like, I like the idea. We just should submit this.
The timing is what you're saying.
Yes, submit it as a parting shot, because that way our heads are no longer in the crosshairs.
Exactly. There's an old turn saying, when you're up to your bottom lip in a pool full of shit, it's best not to make waves.
Pretty much, yeah. Right?
Okay. This is something
I thought it was when you're up to your bottom lip in a pool full of shit, it's not time to open your mouth.
Same.
Well, if we're trying to really stick it to them, then just leave it as stolen. But if we want to do the politically correct thing, appropriated would be the terminology.
I like appropriated. It's better than confiscated, because confiscated, as of, oh god, here is where I'm turning into a fucking
confiscated.
So it makes it sound like we did something wrong. So okay.
Yes. So
appropriated then.
Yeah. Commandeered would also be a good one as well.
Oh, put on there. He stole all my comic books.
That's part of the inventory. See, attached inventory list.
We will not put
the itemized section.
My special issue number 1 of Superman.
He stole
in the plastic.
He stole all of my comic books and all of my chocolate pudding cups, and I am upset.
Now, see, I'd believe Bubba would specifically have chocolate pudding cups. I'd take that.
Yeah. And
well,
Jimmy points out, and Tammy points out very correctly, never back your opponent into a corner, and don't leave them, and not leave them a way out either.
True.
No, I like the idea of kicking this thing out when we're on our way.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So we just sit on it, and then when we're ready to leave, then we kick it out and say, "Oh, by the way." So.
That is you guys' pattern, like the nomad that you chucked out of your ship before you took off, and the prisoners that you left underneath to be blasted. That is kind of your pattern to just kill things out.
We get a parting shot.
Yes. If it's out of the ship and we're hitting the main thrusters, it's not really our problem anymore.
What if we like you said, we wait until like before we leave to send it in, and then we prime the engines and we wait for them to approach the ship, and then we blast off, and then we can just burn them too.
Because I don't want to be culpable for multiple homicides on a world that has the ability to shoot us out of orbit.
Yeah, but aren't they basically space Nazis? So, I mean, it'd be okay.
Yeah,
right?
but unfortunately, if you're in a wooden biplane and a dozen Focke-Wulf 190s come after you, it doesn't matter whether they're Nazis or not.
Yeah.
You're screwed.
Yeah.
Yeah, this video is getting demonetized. But anyway,
that was I was going to hop off here though. It was fun. I'm just gonna go pass out.
All right, man. Have a good one.
Take it easy, y'all.
See you later, guy.
Later. Okay. So anyway.
Yeah, no,
I just wanted to throw that out for everybody's interpretation, see what they wanted to do with it. It was an idea. That's all it was.
Some kind of retaliatory parting shot is definitely on the books, and I'm glad you're thinking that way. But again, surface to air missiles, particle beam weapons, rail guns, foul language, whatever, they can knock us out of space with it. So,
oh yeah, a spitball would take us down right now.
Right now, yes, it would. So we'll just I don't know. We'll have the what is it? The Sauerbraten burgers or whatever it is they serve here, Mr. Game Master.
Yeah, how long are we down with our ship being repaired?
Did you tell us it was like a month standard that the ship would be down or something insane like that?
It's at least 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because normally it's 2 weeks for an overhaul.
Right.
An annual overhaul, but this thing is past 30 years past its
oh, of course,
annual overhaul.
Yeah, this is the point where the many hundreds of years descendant of Luke from Junkyard Digs would be doing a resto on our ship. Anyway, I'm sorry, I said Luke, I meant Kevin. Kevin from Junkyard Digs. Anyhow, so next week, Classic Traveler back in action. This week we have got tomorrow night is another deep dive into Dwellers of the Forbidden City. We're going to continue looking at that module and its surrounding environs. And then Friday night, we enter the realms of horror as we explore the works and worlds and imagination of H.P. Lovecraft. And I hope you will all join us for our Spooktober celebration of the works of one of the masters of cosmic horror, because that begins Friday night at 9:30. And we have some willing participants who are going to join in that live stream game with us. Jimmy says, I saw the last stream. Excellent. But I do want to take a hot minute before I forget, because we're sitting here, and I want to thank everybody who helps make the show happen. Not just our participants, although they're awesome, but these folks here: Joshua Garlock, Lord Corian, Ricky Maru, who just teleported away, Mobius, Kevin Reynolds, Doomsword Deathmaster, Mark Simpson, Damien247, James Keck, William Smith, the Dungeon Minister, sit you down, Padre, bless you, Manny Wall, Mark Corey, Kevin Wood, Todd Sharp, Carnivore Farmer, Rob, Jeremy Rule, Bo Ganora, Mikey Manx, Sky Hernstrom, Pete Sullivan, DM's Council, and of course, Baron Von Headbanger Metal. Thank you all very much for contributing to the ongoing success of the show.
And remember, guys, to critically hit that like button and subscribe if you ain't done it already.
Please do. We appreciate that. So, Mr. Game Master, what have you got for us next week?
Oh, well, we should actually game next week.
I'm for it.
But like I said, just keep an eye on the schedule, because the schedule thing should say the actual time for you, and let us know if it doesn't work, because I can start later. I can't start earlier, but I can start an hour, up to an hour later. Let us know in the Discord how it works for you. Second, who wants a second?
Jimmy Invictus wants a 60-second synopsis, Traveler. Go.
I thought that was from Bill.
Oh, you want
player perspective? Player perspective. Okay, all right. From the GM perspective, so the player characters had finished their military service, and they were demobilized or mustered out, not at a place that they actually wanted to be, because there's no rule that says you have to be mustered out somewhere nice. They were mustered out on the world of Gibson, which is just a small world that's been settled for an amount of a long time. It's somewhat agricultural, a little bit of tourism and that, but it's not terribly high tech. It's a balkanized world. It has a settled area and a nomadic area, amongst others. They were going to wait for the next ship off that world, but that was about a month away, so they decided to make themselves busy in the meantime. They were hired by this woman, Jaquel, who said she was a xenoarchaeologist and wanted to dig up one of the old colony ships that had come to this place, because sublight ships had colonized the place before faster than light ships had. And so they went out to dig it up, and when they went out to had a look, they found it, and when they went out to dig it up, they found that it was of more recent origin, but more like 30 years rather than 300 years. It still had a liquid metal reactor that was humming away. They had a number of fights with the nomads, and there were a couple of guys frozen on the ship too, in prison inmate suits. They weren't quite sure who they were, because the paper records had disappeared, and the electronic records were only available if they fired the thing up, but the ship was on its side, so it wasn't good to fire up just yet. But anyway, they had a number of encounters with a local pawn shop guy, Ballard, and they eventually figured out, once they fired their ship up and that Ballard had been one of the criminals in Cold Sleep on the ship, and they had all been being transported to another world, and that at some point the criminals had escaped from Cold Sleep, or at least one of them had escaped from Cold Sleep and taken over the ship and crash landed it on this planet. The ship had also been taking some precious metals, whether as cargo or payment or smuggling, they didn't know, but the ship had been taking some precious metals, and Ballard apparently had taken some of those precious metals and used them to start a new life for himself in Gibson, and had befriended the local nomads to keep watch over the ship, and just sort of fished out bits of money over the years, built a new life for himself. So they ended up in a number of shootouts with him, and a number of fights, and they went off and they landed their ship by the water so that they could refuel and do some repairs so that they could manage to take off. And eventually they took off, and they dealt with the problem of the convicts by putting them underneath the ship as they took off. And they took off, and they went to the nearby world of Liber. They found that the nearby world of Liber had been recently taken over by another world, Helderman, or specifically a faction on Helderman. Helderman is also balkanized, and it's involved in a war there, and they've taken over this other world, Liber, in an attempt to gain advantage over their enemies back home. A bit like Japan saying, we're having trouble fighting China, so we'll attack America too. So that was their plan, but how it will turn out, time will tell. And everything's pretty restrictive on this planet. How much it's restrictive because that's the Josephite faction back on Helderman and how they are, and how much it's restrictive just because it's a military occupation. The party isn't sure, but yeah, that's where they find themselves. So they landed on this world, and normally your ship has to be overhauled or serviced every year. This thing was 30 years past that, So I needed a big service. So they landed to get it serviced. They had an unfriendly encounter with local customs. Prohibited on this world any weapons and also any precious metals and stuff, because of course all the rebels use that. But the customs inspector, the one place he didn't look was the cargo, because he said nobody smuggles things in the actual cargo. They smuggle things in the rest of the ship. So he tore the rest of the ship apart, and he didn't find all their precious metals. But he did find their firearms and took them away. Their precious metals, they took a case of gold to pay for the repairs on the ship. But that's going to take some weeks to do. So in the meantime, they had to entertain themselves. And they went to the local bar and had some sauerkraut and sausages and ale and engaged in some line dancing. Basically, like being in East Berlin in 1975.
So before Todd launches into 99 Luft balloons, I think we'll probably break it off there. Thank you to my awesome panel tonight. I had a lot of fun. I know we didn't get to gaming and everything, and hell, I don't think the pizza even got here yet. So next week we will rejoin same bat time, different bat time, same bat channel. Let me clarify that. And again, tomorrow night, continuing our deep dive into Dwellers of the Forbidden City, and Friday, Call of Cthulhu live stream. You guys have an absolutely wonderful evening out there in audience land. Thank everybody who hung out with us. It was kind of fun tonight. I had fun. Did you guys have fun? I had fun.
I had fun. Yes.
It was definitely fun. And beware the mean horse with the invisible cloak. It will bite.
I tore its head off.
Let's see what Bubba looks like.
Talking random nonsense is a major part of every game group's time. Let's be honest.
Of course.
It absolutely is. It absolutely is. So thank you again to our audience. You guys have a lovely evening and peace out.